Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my live. My name is Shayna, and I am your decision architect for founders. I actually help them design the or make decisions that will unlock their next level of revenue. And so this is not live. I am actually trying a new setup and I'm working with multiple systems. So I ask for your grace and understanding as we talk this afternoon. We're going to actually be talking about the cost of insight, the lack of insight, and how that may be actually affecting your business. This has, and it's just to normalize, right? How do we think? I have notes so that I can stay on track because I like to talk and I don't want to ramble. I want to be clear. But we want to go from a place of insight to action and how I've been able to journey through this process and have seen great reward, how my clients had to realize and actually put into a methodology of what I walk my clients through from beginning to end, and how we've been able to see repeatable increase process within their revenue structure year after year. We've been able to see growth, not just within their systems and in their business, but also within themselves. And so I hope that this helps you. Um, and also why clarity alone does not change your revenue. Strategy alone does not change revenue, especially if you are a high cognitive, high functioning, high performance founder. Reason is because most of the times we are strong leaders and we have strong leadership skills, but sometimes we become the bottleneck and or the blind spot within our own company, within our own business model. And so I believe that it's important for us to highlight these things and how they may affect us or currently affecting us. And if we're planning on creating any type of growth and we're tired of being stuck or stagnant within our revenue, this is what we need to digest as founders. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just offering a methodology, a system that will allow you to, that you can borrow. And if it works for you, then of course apply it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between having insight, but then also execution, or having an executable decision, right? Meaning moving, how do we move from a place of awareness? How do we move from a place of understanding, of intellect, of knowledge, but then to a place of execution and action? Furthermore, how do we do this in a more, in a quicker way? How do we, because execution does not always equate to the outcome. We can have a desire for growth, progress, sustainability. We can have all of the facts. We can have all of the insight. We can have the documentation. We can have the data. And we can be super aware. I know one of the things that, especially if you're high cognitive, high functioning, your level of awareness is superb, is top tier. You have the ability to gather information very quickly, but the way you apply the information, streamline the information, that may be where you see a disconnect. And so execution equals outcome, not insight. So insight does not equal outcome. Awareness does not equal outcome. Execution equals outcomes. When you are packaging and creating systems and structure, as you already know, because most of you have scaled to a place, and have seen probably continuous growth, but probably have seen stagnation as well, probably within the last 6 months to a year, maybe even 2 years within your business model. And most of the time, it's not that you lack insight, because insight is equal to awareness. You know the problems, you're probably able to jot them down, you probably have sticky notes everywhere. But it's the part of execution. It's the changes. It's the trigger that needs to be made. It's the decisions that need to be made to get you or your company on the other side that you lack, right? And so sometimes when you are in that decision making phase, and sometimes when we're taking our clients through the decision reprogramming or repatterning, we have to identify what has been working within their business model, within their structure, what has not been working, or what has been put on the back burner. And we've seen over and over again that the things, after assessing these three different areas, The things that's on the back burner are actually what we need to move to the front because that's what actually pulls the trigger. It's the decisions, the hard conversations that's being put off that you know as a leader within your company that needs to be made, but maybe you are finding yourself kind of like going down this analytical collecting data, collecting evidence. Maybe you're finding yourself not liking a conflict. And so you see all conflict as bad conflict. And so we have to create the environment, the decision making environment, so that you're able to implement this decision making system within your company and pull the trigger quicker. And so we also notice that this is why some founders move into a place where they know what to do, but don't move. They have all of the intellect and or intent. They have all of the evidence around them that shows, hey, I know what I'm doing. But then they find themselves needing validation or confirmation, and not so much validation from out external, but they're looking for internal validation. Sometimes they're trying to even reprogram and pattern themselves to get back, that it's like a feeling that they remember. Hey, I remember this feeling, or I remember this idea that got me to this point. And they find themselves scanning, trying to get back to that place, and sometimes never regaining the traction or being able to pinpoint that feeling. And so sometimes then that causes them to put it on the back burner, right? The decision or the idea or the goal or the vision, because they're saying, hey, it's not time, or it's not right. Now, evidence shows, if you were to scan the environment, that it is right, right? Because if you have it in your heart, you know that it's time to change. We want to get you to a place of executing, but executing quickly, executing in the moment, right? Not allowing your nervous systems and or your thought patterns to think you into a place of sabotage, or think you into a place of procrastination, or think you into a place of stagnation. And so we have to be able to identify these patterns and behaviors. And so therefore we isolate the patterns and behaviors. We look at things from a bird's eye view so that we're able to identify the specific systems that we need to implement for you. All right. This is a private session that we provide because sometimes you are your blind spot. And so sometimes you need someone on the outside to be able to take an assessment and look at the holistic approach to execute, right? This is not strategy. This is not mindset work. Sometimes you have the intellect, you have all of the degree, all of the information that you need to validate where you are. But now we need to create the decision environment that allows you to execute and move forward quickly and not be the bottleneck in the decision making process within your company. And so, how do we identify or create decision environments? Because it's not motivation. Motivation is a fleeting experience and or thought. It's a fleeting emotion, and it does not drive execution. Because some days you may feel it, some days you may not. Some days you may feel that you have the ability to make decisions quickly and sometimes not. But because of that, sometimes and sometimes not, right? That procrastination, that stagnation, the weight that you carry inside of your mind, right? Constantly thinking, planning, sometimes thinking about how this one decision sometimes can affect the entire team, the entire structure. You may even think yourself into a place of insomnia where you're not sleeping. You may even be a creative like me, where sometimes you find your quiet time at night the most creative time for you. But then when you are getting into that place of insomnia, or you're thinking from a place of that creation, and it may work for you, right? Your internal system may be you work at night, thinking process at night. Others may be during the day, think for others first thing in the morning, whatever works best for you. But if you find yourself doing that to a place where now when it's time for you to execute, deliver, show up, create the systems and structures to put in place to see sustainable growth, so that all decisions and processes do not depend on you by yourself. And it doesn't have to mean that you're working with a team, but it does have to mean that everything does not rely on how you are feeling in that particular moment and or day. Whenever you find yourself going internally to begin to process how you feel, how does this make you feel? And yes, I believe it starts there. but it can't stay there because in order for you to bring it to fruition, execution, we then have to have it packaged into a system, an external system that can be executed. And you've done this before, right? You're not a beginner. You're not in the beginning stage of your business, but you are at a place of standstill. So we also see what have gotten you started, right? The grit, the work, the grind, the sacrifice, the figuring it all out, carrying all the marbles in the baskets. What got you to your first six figures is not what's going to get you to your next and or that $1 million goal or mark that you have. And so in order for us to identify that, we have to look at where you are frustrated, right? Where are the frustrations? Where are the patterns that continuously show up and come up for you? I can remember in my business where I found myself constantly having to react or respond to the same crisis and problem over and over again. And I would find myself, it may start off small where I'm running out of, maybe material as printing paper or ink for my printer to something big as far as possibly payroll. Now, these are things that are predictable things that you need or have to do on a regular basis. And so instead of me putting a system in place where, and most of the things I automate so that I don't have to carry the mental load, or I identify specific tasks or things that need to be done and who and what I can delegate it to. Something as simple as that would cause you grief and or frustration. But if you notice this is something that's going on over and over again, whether it's big or small, you can put a plan in place or process in place to eliminate that. And so it goes beyond the mindset work and the mindset tactics that you need, because at some point you are, of course, the head, the CEO, and the founder. But then once we begin to execute and duplicate vision and mission, once we begin to identify who you're called to serve, and in the capacity you desire to serve them in, and that goes beyond just you. We now have to create a framework or a process around your decision making system. Your decision making now becomes a system and not a luxury. In the beginning as a CEO, and you're like, hey, most of the time you go, there's processes in the beginning, you're taskmaster as well. You're trying to figure out who you serve, what you're going to offer, how you're going to support them. And then you may go to a place where you are now in delegation, where you have identified all of the footwork and things, and you're now seeing consistent growth within your company. But then now we have to be able to package those things into frameworks, processes, and systems so that you can continue to grow and that your company does not just grow as far as you. There's different stages. And so you're probably at that, probably the mid to end stage where we have to be able to look into the company to identify what framework, process, system, and or methodology has carried you this far. And it is a decision to say, what am I going to package in or identify to continue to carry me to the next six figures and with multiple six figures in my company or seven figures in my company. And this is a decision. And it could be a decision you have to pull the trigger on. But because you have not packaged a system, because at this stage is where you have to create a decision-making environment. You have to package a decision system within your company, within your structure, within your business model that you now can duplicate and repeat for growth, for sustainable growth, for healthier growth. Because the work that you put in the beginning, you will not have the ability to put that work in the end because it is not healthy, it's not sustainable. Just as much as it's important to have a company of growth and making multiple six figures and seven figures in a company, also rest, good health, a good healthy mind, healthy relationships. All of those things are just equally as important. And in different seasons, it causes for you to wear different hats and to put certain things into priority and perspective. But if everything comes on the back end and back burner of you and your wellness, then that's also a red flag to identify, hey, it's time to make a change. We walk our clients through a holistic approach to assess where they are the bottleneck within their company. We identify what they've used to get to their first six figures within their company, But then we sit with them to create an environment, a decision-making environment and or system or structure them to get to the next six figures or even seven figures within their company. This is a luxury because if you are trying to figure everything out and carry everything on your own, it gets to a place where you can hit burnout. And we've seen our clients there. They most of the time they come to us at that place of burnout. But it is possible for you to put systems in place and to identify and make decisions before burnout hits. And we would love to be able to partner with you and connect with you in that phase. And so I've added a link below in our description. Please feel free to schedule a complimentary session with us, which allows us to not only get to know one another, but then also so you can see how we can support you and continue to support your company's growth in the most healthiest way possible. We would love to be able to connect with you. Thank you so much. If you're watching a replay, please share in the comments something that you will take and or implement, or maybe have gotten just collected insight from this. And I would love to connect with you soon. We'll talk to you later.